you find just so people can understand how complex of a crossroads it is, as far as like an inspiration for warfare. The Zetas, or who they used to be, learned how to use propaganda warfare from Americans.
So again, it comes back to that whole argument where they're like, all right, this enemy's worse than that enemy, so fuck it, we'll take that L.
Yeah.
That's what they decide, and they use Mexico. It's very clear across every level. They use Mexico as a dumping ground for that.
I remember watching Rambo 3. You remember Rambo 3?
Yeah.
It's like a Taliban or just a bunch of like freedom fighters, and then but then they're not anymore.
Then they're not. They were the Mujahideen back then, right?
So a lot of the same phenomenon has happened in Mexico, I guess.
Yes.
These guys are our allies, and now they're not. We've seen the U.S. use, for example, the Mexican Marines. For a while, the Mexican Marines were utilized by the United States as a point of contact, and they would utilize them to do operations against cartels. Operation Black Swan, which went after El Chapo Guzman in his final moments of freedom, was run by the Mexican Marines. But the federal Mexican government saw this when they changed political parties and said, like, you know what? We're not going to use you guys anymore because you are compromised by the U.S. So let's use the Mexican army instead. That's why you start seeing...
Who's compromised by the cartels?
The Marines are compromised by the U.S.
Yeah, the Marines are compromised by the U.S., but the Mexican army is compromised by the cartels.
It's compromised by a more old and linear... And again, I'm not just speaking out of my ass when I say that the Mexican army is compromised by cartels. People can look up something called the Guacamaya leaks, which is our version. Guacamaya leaks was a giant leak of Mexican army documents.
It's like the Pentagon Papers, kind of.
Yeah. And in these documents, there's like conversations about, hey, the governor in this state works for this cartel, so let's, or this military region favors this cartel over here, but this military so they're speaking openly about.
Yeah, we have it pulled up here on the screen. So military surveilled Ayotzinapa school for years before disappearance of 43 students. Intelligence reports reveal constant exchange of messages during night of attacks in Iguala. Mexican military continues to deny investigators complete access to archives.
This is in relation to a bunch of students that went missing in Mexico.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, what you were talking about, the Mexican military's current use of the Israeli surveillance platform
Pegasus. Yeah, Pegasus.
Wait, they're using Pegasus?
Pegasus has been implemented. I have experience with this. Pegasus has been implemented in Mexico for years now. The Israelis have a really strange presence in Mexico as far as trading, as far as politics.
They have a strange presence everywhere.
As far as cartel activity, there's been some high-level cartel assassinations with Israeli individuals involved in Mexico. So, yeah, they're around. There was a time in the early 2000s where they were like the it people for security in Mexico. So if I'm a security agency and I need high-level anti-terrorist training, the U.S. wouldn't send people because they're afraid to bring people down. So the Israelis would come. So a lot of
like the Israeli government sponsored, or like companies like Black Cube.
People would say people that came from Israeli government that are now presenting themselves as contractors.
Like Black Cube. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Which again, I'm not saying anything. I don't know, but I imagine that there is some shady shit going on.
You just did, so
I mean, these are
just his hands up like Trusky, like don't worry about me.
I'm not Kanye West or anything like that. But
I wasn't gonna accuse you of that.
but there's definitely Mexico is this crossroads of a place. I mean,
yes,
you find just so people can understand how complex of a crossroads it is, as far as like an inspiration for warfare. The Zetas, or who they used to be, learned how to use propaganda warfare from Americans. So Americans showed Mexican special forces how to use propaganda warfare to psychologically damage their enemy from the U.S. The Zetas, the Mexican special forces guy turned into the Zetas. The Zetas start implementing torture videos of people getting hacked in half with a chainsaw or fucking horrible shit. And these videos start showing up online. A lot of Americans' first interactions with the cartels online were these videos. And these videos were being seen by the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
So we can draw a clear line from the U.S. showing how to use terror videos to the Mexican army, to the Zetas, to ISIS, like the inspiration of this process. And also you can see the IEDs and a lot of the weird mortars and explosives we're finding all over Mexico are traced back to people that are coming back as people that are coming back with experience from the Middle East,
Right?
Americans with military training and experience who are then like, I don't want to work at a fucking 7-Eleven. Let me go to Mexico,
Sell my IDs.
sell my experience and my IDs.
IP. Yeah.
There's some people online talking about high-level special forces individuals training people in places like Jalisco. Like I've been down there and talked to a lot of people down there. I don't see that. I don't think there's a Delta Force guy down there training anybody, but I think there are probably a few Americans that have some sort of military background and experience, at least in Jalisco, doing tactics and training, explosive and ordnance type training to some of these
cartels.
For cartels. So again, we have this feeling that a lot of things that happen in Mexico are just somehow just originate in Mexico.
No.
A lot of them are originating in the United States and the influence of the United States into Mexico. And again, ideas come from all over the place. Israelis, and again, this is from the stew maker of Pozolero's statement. Israelis showed elements of the Arellano Felix cartel in Tijuana how to get rid of bodies. Right.
This is years ago.
Yeah. So that is a foreign entity or a foreign group basically showing tradecraft to Mexican criminal organizations. Then you start seeing IEDs and bomblets of a very specific type. And again, I have interactions and I share information with people, including some people in the U.S. Army who every now and then IEDs and explosive related stuff like it gets sent to me, and I'm like, I just like check this out. A lot of the know-how for some of these IEDs and a lot of the know-how, just the skill set, especially with some of these IEDs that are showing up in the northwestern part of Mexico. These IEDs have a very specific trigger set up, a plunger from a syringe. So these plastic plungers from a syringe. So these bombs, these mines are actually plastic. A lot of them are actually mostly made of plastic with a very small amount of metal in them.
They're that delicate then.
Yeah, there's these things you can buy. And we're like, that's a curious style. That's not something you'll see. We don't have ordnance laying around all over the place like Iraq or Afghanistan. So they're utilizing mining level explosives or some homemade stuff. That actually comes from Colombia. So at some point, the Colombian FARC units and forces hired a bunch of IRA members.
Like the IRA in Ireland?
Yeah, the IRA in Ireland, who also were supplied and trained by U.S. people. The IRA basically trained a bunch of the Colombian FARC forces, and the methodologies and systems of how the great IEDs and explosives are making their way north.
It's a fucking petri dish.
It is, and it's an insane school of modern fourth generation warfare, I guess is what you would call it. But Mexico is a petri dish, and it is something that is now creating. I mean, people were surprised by the drones being utilized as weapons in the Ukrainian war. Like,
why were they surprised about that?
I don't know. Like it was like a novelty thing for people. Like I was seeing them in Syria and in Mexico before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like drones.
They've been around.
Yeah. Like 2011, I think, is when I found. I don't remember exactly. Again, a lot of brain injuries. We found this quad drone in La Avenida Internacional near San Isidro with a giant brick of meth because they were utilizing them to like cross drugs into the U.S. This is 2011.
They're using drones to do drops.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. This is 2013 era. I don't remember exactly. It's late. But and then they landed one with a grenade They landed a drone with a grenade in the backyard of a former like government official in Baja. So this shit has been happening a while, and a lot of the stuff. Again, I mentioned all this because I feel in a lot of ways that Mexico has been utilized as a trading ground or as a center of creation for a lot of the stuff you're seeing.
It's experimentation.
Yeah,
That's what you're describing.
Because it's a place. It's a Wild West place.
Yes.
There's no authority realistically. You might go into a town where the local cops are working with one cartel, the state cops are working with another, and the federal cops are
How
working.
does that even work, though? How do they organize that? Because one is supposed to be outranking another.
After his last arrest and extradition to the United States.
Okay.
Also, although he was arrested many times and escaped from prison many times.
Seen that video.
I mean, you have El Mayo Zambada in U.S. custody.